Picture this, it's 34,000 years ago, and the Russian landscape is locked in the grip of the Ice Age. Mammoth herds roam across frozen plains, and small groups of humans struggle to survive in one of the harshest environments on Earth. Yet in this unforgiving world, something extraordinary happens that will challenge everything we thought we knew about our ancient ancestors. Deep in what is now Russia, near the modern city of Vladimir, a community of hunter-gatherers makes a decision that will echo through time. They're about to create one of the most elaborate burials in human history. But here's where the story gets interesting, and where popular myths meet archaeological reality. You might have heard whispers of ancient lovers buried face to face, locked in an eternal embrace that lasted 34,000 years. It's a romantic notion that captures our imagination, but the truth is far more remarkable. The real story isn't about lovers at all. It's about two children whose burial reveals something profound about human compassion, community, and the lengths our ancestors went to honor their dead. The site is called Sungheir, and it was first discovered in 1955 during construction work. What archaeologists found there would rewrite our understanding of Upper Paleolithic society. The burial that has captured the world's attention contains not lovers, but two children, a boy of about 12 to 13 years old and a girl around 9 to 10 years old. They were laid to rest head to head, not face to face, in a long, narrow grave that tells a story of unprecedented care and reverence. But why does this distinction matter? Because the truth is far more powerful than the myth. These weren't adults choosing to be buried together in death. These were children, and their burial reveals something extraordinary about how Ice Age communities valued every member of their society, regardless of age or physical condition. The evidence suggests both children had physical disabilities. The boy showed signs of serious developmental issues, while the girl appeared to have suffered from dwarfism and other conditions. In a world where survival meant everything, where every calorie mattered and every person needed to contribute to the group's survival, these children were not abandoned or neglected. Instead, they were buried with more wealth than most pharaohs would see millennia later. Let's talk about that wealth, because it's staggering. The children were covered in over 10,000 mammoth ivory beads. Think about that number for a moment. Each bead had to be carefully carved by hand using stone tools. Archaeological experiments suggest that creating just one bead would take about an hour of skilled work. It means someone in this Ice Age community spent roughly 10,000 hours, about 5 years of full-time work, creating beads for these children's burial. But the beads were just the beginning. The children were also buried with more than 20 ivory armbands, 300 pierced fox teeth, 16 ivory mammoth spears, carved artwork, deer antlers, and 2 human fibulas. The mammoth ivory spears are particularly remarkable. Some of them were over 2 meters long, carved from single pieces of mammoth tusk. These weren't just symbolic objects, they were masterpieces of craftsmanship that would have represented an enormous investment of time and skill. The children's bodies were also covered in red ochre, a mineral pigment that had to be traded or gathered from distant sources. Red ochre was precious in the Ice Age world, and its use suggests these burials held deep spiritual significance. The pigment wouldn't have been wasted on anything less than the most important ceremonies. What makes this burial even more extraordinary is its context. We're talking about 34,000 years ago during the Middle Upper Paleolithic period. This was a time when humans were just beginning to develop complex symbolic behavior. Cave paintings, elaborate tools, and sophisticated hunting techniques were emerging. The Sungheir burial represents one of the earliest examples of complex ritual behavior in human history. The positioning of the children, head to head rather than side by side, is unique among known prehistoric burials. This specific arrangement may have had deep symbolic meaning that we can only guess at. Perhaps it represented unity, or maybe it was part of a spiritual belief system that saw death as a transition requiring specific rituals. The burial also included an adult femur filled with red ochre placed between the children. This addition suggests the burial wasn't just about the children themselves, but was part of a broader ritual system that connected the living and the dead. The femur may have belonged to an ancestor or important community member, creating a link between generations. What's most remarkable is what this burial tells us about Ice Age society. These weren't the brutal, uncaring primitives that popular culture often portrays. This was a community that cared deeply for its most vulnerable members. They invested enormous resources in honoring children who, by modern standards, would have required significant care and support during their lives. The genetic evidence from Sungheir Sungheer adds another layer to this story. DNA analysis has revealed that the buried individuals weren't closely related to each other. This suggests that the community's care extended beyond family bonds to encompass the entire social group. It's evidence of a sophisticated social structure that valued individuals not for their economic contribution, but for their inherent worth as human beings. Compare this to other famous archaeological discoveries of couples buried together, and you'll see why the Sungheer burial is so unique. The lovers of Valdaro in Italy, dating to about 6,000 years ago, shows a man and woman buried in an embrace. The Hassanlu lovers from Iran, dating to about 800 BCE, were found during the destruction of a city. These are powerful discoveries, but they tell different stories about human relationships and society. Sungheer, however, represents something unprecedented. It's not just about individual relationships, but about how an entire community chose to honor its dead. The elaborate nature of the burial, the incredible wealth of grave goods, and the care taken in the positioning of the bodies all point to a society that had developed complex spiritual beliefs and social structures. The site has yielded other burials as well, including an adult male who was buried with similar elaborate grave goods. This suggests that the children's burial wasn't an isolated event, but part of a broader cultural practice. However, the children's burial stands out even among these elaborate graves for its sheer extravagance. Recent research has also challenged some earlier assumptions about the burial. Some scientists have suggested that the children might have been sacrificed as part of a ritual, but the evidence doesn't support this theory. Instead, the burial appears to be a genuine expression of care and reverence for community members who died naturally. The preservation of the burial is itself remarkable. The cold climate and specific soil conditions at Sungheer allowed for the exceptional preservation of both the human remains and the grave goods. This has given archaeologists an unprecedented window into Upper Paleolithic life and death practices. What does this mean for our understanding of human evolution and society? The Sungheer burial suggests that complex social behavior, including care for the disabled and elaborate death rituals, emerged much earlier than previously thought. It challenges the idea that such behaviors only developed with the rise of agriculture and settled societies. The burial also provides insights into Ice Age economics and social organization. The ability to invest such enormous resources in a burial suggests that these communities had developed efficient hunting and gathering strategies that allowed for surplus production. It also suggests sophisticated social networks that could coordinate the creation and accumulation of such elaborate grave goods. The craftsmanship evident in the burial goods reveals advanced technical skills and artistic sensibilities. The ivory carving, bead making, and tool production all demonstrate that these Ice Age communities had developed specialized skills and possibly even specialist craftspeople. Perhaps most importantly, the Sungheer burial reminds us that care for the vulnerable and elaborate honoring of the dead are not modern innovations. They represent deep-seated human values that have persisted for tens of thousands of years. In a world where survival was uncertain and resources were limited, these people chose to invest enormous effort in honoring two disabled children. The story of Sungheer isn't about ancient lovers locked in eternal embrace. It's about something far more profound, a community that chose compassion over convenience, reverence over practicality, and human dignity over harsh survival calculations. It's a reminder that even in the depths of the Ice Age, humans were capable of extraordinary acts of care, creativity, and love. As we continue to study these remarkable burials, we're not just learning about the past, we're discovering fundamental truths about what it means to be human. The children of Sungheer, buried head to head in their elaborate grave, represent not just an archaeological curiosity, but a profound statement about the values that have shaped our species for millennia. Their story reminds us that the capacity for compassion, the drive to honor our dead, and the willingness to invest in beauty and meaning are not recent developments in human history. They are ancient impulses that connect us directly to our Ice Age ancestors, proving that the human heart has remained remarkably consistent across the vast periods that separate us from these remarkable people who lived and died 34,000 years ago. The ongoing research at Sungheer continues to yield new insights. Modern technology is allowing archaeologists to extract DNA from the remains, providing unprecedented details about the genetic relationships between the buried individuals and their broader community. Advanced imaging techniques are revealing microscopic details details about the craftsmanship of the burial goods that were invisible to earlier researchers. Each new discovery adds another layer to our understanding of these remarkable people. The site also raises intriguing questions about the nature of Ice Age spirituality and belief systems. The specific positioning of the children, the use of red ochre, and the inclusion of certain symbolic objects all point to a complex religious or spiritual framework. While we may never fully understand the beliefs that motivated these burials, the archaeological evidence suggests they were far more sophisticated than previously imagined. The preservation techniques used at Sunghir represent another remarkable achievement. The community didn't just bury these children, they took specific steps to ensure their preservation. The use of red ochre, the careful positioning of the bodies, and the protection provided by the elaborate grave goods all suggest knowledge of preservation techniques that helped these burials survive for millennia. What makes the Sunghir children's story even more poignant is the evidence of how the community cared for them during their lives. The children's physical conditions would have required constant attention and support. In a world where every calorie mattered and mobility was crucial for survival, these children were not only kept alive, but were clearly valued members of their community. This challenges many assumptions about how prehistoric societies treated individuals with disabilities. The burial also provides insights into Ice Age gender roles and social structures. The boy and girl were buried with different types of grave goods, suggesting that even at this early stage of human development, communities had developed distinct cultural roles and identities. Yet both children received equally elaborate treatment, indicating that status and respect weren't determined solely by physical capability or gender. If you're fascinated by these glimpses into our ancient past, there's so much more to discover about our prehistoric ancestors. The story of Sunghir is just one piece of a much larger puzzle about human evolution, social development, and the origins of our most fundamental values. Subscribe Stone Age to stay updated on the latest archaeological discoveries that continue to reshape our understanding of who we are and where we came from. Hit that notification bell so you never miss these incredible stories. Perhaps most importantly, the Sunghir burial reminds us that care for the vulnerable and elaborate honoring of the dead are not modern innovations. They represent deep-seated human values that have persisted for tens of thousands of years. In a world where
Want to discover more about Stone Age life? From hunting techniques to ancient tools, there's so much more to explore about how our ancestors survived and thrived. Subscribe to our channel for more fascinating stories from the Stone Age.